Hi everybody, I'm Ryan. Today we're going to talk about the sideboarding of mono-white humans in Pioneer. Now when we do this, we're just going to look at the top 10 most popular decks and give you a sideboard guide for each of those top 10 most popular decks. And hopefully you can take the lessons you learned from those top 10 most popular decks and apply it to the more rogue decks in Pioneer. So let's jump right into it with the most popular deck in Pioneer, which is Red-Black Midrange. Now Red-Black Midrange is focused on removing our creatures and applying counter pressure to us. So I like bringing in all four of our wedding announcements, and really nothing else in our sideboard is very good. So while we're bringing in the four wedding announcements, we're going to bring out four Brutal Cathars. The reason we're bringing out Brutal Cathars, even though they have creatures that we might want to remove, is we can't make their removal spells better, or let them use removal spells as like a combat trick in combat. That is not something we can really afford to do in this matchup. So we bring out the Brutal Cathars, we bring in the wedding announcements, and really every creature besides really Shieldred with a normal hand, we should be able to attack through and have successful combats with. If we had more sideboard cards, an alternate card to bring out would be Brave the Elements. Brave the Elements rarely ends up being the like, I have a giant board, but we're all gummed up. Brave the Elements, jam through for 1,000,000 like normally is. Brave the Elements normally is just like kind of a spot removal protection, which is not very good in the matchup, but I think is better than Brutal Cathar. So this is how I like sideboarding. Against Mono Green Devotion, we have kind of a big sideboard, which is the second most popular deck. We bring in our four Portable Holes, because if we can hit our Mana Dorks or Wolfwillow Haven, notice Portable Hole says non-land permanent, and we can slow them down. That's really strong. It can also just win the game sometimes, because often Mono Green keeps land-light hands with mana ramp against us, and if we can kind of stop that, sometimes we can just steal games through that method. We're bringing in Radine to cast on the God side, because it slows down Karn and slows down Storm the Festival, which are two of the cards that are pretty okay against us. And we're bringing in Skyclave Apparition. Really, the way this matchup plays out is we play out our creatures, we get in as much damage as we can early in the game, and then we either remove our opponent's big creatures and keep jamming in, or the board gets gummed up and we just Brave the Elements through for the last bit of damage. That being said, the Skyclave coming in helps with that removal as we are just trying to remove their blockers and get in. But again, it can remove Karn. And if we're on the play, sometimes you just play this card to remove an Elvish Mystic, and that's totally fine too. Now the reality is that we're not going to win on fast starts very often. They'll block our 2/1s with Elvish Mystics pretty often, and very often it ends up just being like a go wide, really powerful cards, and that's okay. Thalia is very good in the matchup because they have a lot of Planeswalkers and Storm the Festival. It isn't just like a normal creature deck. And Hopeful Initiate is actually super good because when Karn starts searching out their stuff, you can start removing it. Also can stop Wolfwillow Haven or an Old Growth Troll enchantment. So I like bringing out the Dauntless Bodyguards and the Recruitment Officers. Our 2/1s for 1 are not going to be powerful in this matchup. Kythian's okay, because if we're able to flip it, it's pretty powerful, and you try to get one when you're able to force one of your opponent's creatures to attack Gideon and then be able to jam in with the 4/4. But in the late game, often we are just trying to dig to Brave the Elements, not dig to increase the size of our board. So we don't really care that much about Recruitment Officer. This is how I like to sideboard against Mono Green. The third most popular deck in Pioneer is It Phoenix? Against Is It Phoenix, we bring in our wedding announcement just like we do against Red Black, and we also bring in our Rest in Peace. So the reason we bring in Rest in Peace is because it stops them from cheating Phoenix on the battlefield, which is already really strong for us. But also, the way this deck beats us is by presenting so many removal spells and drawing so many cards that we just, can't keep up. And so Rest in Peace turns off Treasure Cruise, it turns off Temporal Trespass for killing us for 1,000,000, and it stops the Phoenix thing, and that's where I want to be in this. Similar to Red Black, I don't like Brutal Cathar. I don't want to make combat more awkward than it is. And similar to Red Black, I don't want to play a ton of Brave the Elements. I'm not interested in attacking through them going wide because they don't go wide. And I'm not interested in using Brave the Elements as protection for a removal spell. I would rather just play more threats. This is where I'm at in Phoenix. The fourth most popular deck is the Mirror Match against Mono-White Humans. We bring in our Portable Holes, obviously, as removal spells. And we are bringing in our Skyclave Apparition as a removal spell. Often, the way this matchup plays out is the person that's on the play brings the opponent's life total pretty low, and then they're all gummed up until they start Brave the Elements in. So we're obviously going to be taking out Thalia, because it doesn't really stop that many things. And I like bringing out a few bodyguards. I would bring out Hopeful Initiate, but having higher toughness makes combat a little bit easier sometimes. And having the late game being able to pop portable holes is pretty sweet. The 5th most popular deck is Blue-White Control. Against Blue-White Control, we are playing Wedding Announcements, because this is our mid-range and control card. This is our late game card. And we are playing our Radines. So Radines mostly for, it slows down their Planeswalkers. It also slows down Supreme Verdicts. It also slows down Memory Deluge. And can just like that transition to the late game or that transition to the mid game even more awkward for our control opponents. We're going to be bringing out Brutal Cathars because it doesn't remove anything on our opponent's side to speak of. And we want to take out Brave the Elements as well. So if we had more cards to bring in, I would be totally okay with like just this board. But we don't have more cards to bring in. And generally they're focused on like blocking or removing with like the Wandering Emperor or things like that. So we keep some number of Brave the Elements in. If we can mess up like a Wandering Emperor combat or, mess up a March or whatever, if we can disrupt them at all when they're trying to do their thing, Blue-White Control has a hard time recovering. So we keep in 2 Brave the Elements just to be kind of cute. Against Abzan Greasefang, we bring in our 3 Rest in Pieces and 1 of our Skyclave Apparitions, and we're just going to bring out our 4 Brave the Elements. Like you said, I don't really care about using Brave the Elements as a spot removal card and protection from spot removal, which they are going to sideboard into. I would rather just have all my cards be good and be able to swarm them. Rest in Peace is the only card in our sideboard that's insane against them. I don't really want to change my plan. Like, I would rather just like race them and disrupt where I can with Thalia and Rest in Peace. And Brutal Cathar and Skyclave Apparition are really good. Because 1, it can remove a Greasefang if they have a non-Parhelion Greasefang, or they just like play Greasefang as a blocker, it can remove them and kind of mess them up pretty bad. But also, like if they play in a Seeker's Chariot, like being able to remove one of the tokens or something like that is also super powerful. The 7th most popular deck is red-green vehicles or Gruul midrange, whatever you want to call it. Against this deck, similar to mono-green, I'm interested in bringing in portable holes for the Mana Dorks and the low-cost aggressive creatures. I like Skyclave Apparition, even though they have some amount of removal, it's not a ton. So being able to remove the big boys is pretty powerful. However, I enjoy keeping in Thalia's Lieutenant because they're really trying to kill us with like Sky Sovereign and things like that. But Brave the Elements is okay because, often the boards get gummed up and it's important to be able to attack with the creatures. I like shaving a Brave the Elements or 2, and then also the playset of Dauntless Bodyguards. I'm not interested in Dauntless Bodyguard. Like they're excited about blocking with the Mana Dorks very often, unless it's like a special hand where they absolutely need them. And when the board gets gummed up, I want to be able to play this late game race with Recruitment Officer. Hopeful Initiate's super important to be able to kill the vehicles. And this is how I like to sideboard against red-green. The 8th most popular deck is the Fires of Invention variants. We are going to bring in Rideen because it slows down fires, and Incarnation if it's that version of the deck. And we're going to bring in Skyclave because it can take out Fires and Incarnation, which if it's that variant of the deck. Very rarely does the board get gummed up, so Brave the Elements is often just spot removal protection, which I'm not interested in. And so we sideboard like this. The 9th most popular deck is the Lotus Field combo deck. And there's very little we actually want to do in this matchup. We're just trying to slow down their combo and kill them as much as possible. And we're already set up to do a lot of that in the main deck. We're bringing our Radines to make things cost a little bit more. Sometimes if we have Radine out when they Lotus Field us, it can sort of stop what's going on. I like Rest in Peace because when they have to do a pile with Emergence Ultimatum that involves Leer, Rest in Peace can kind of mess it up and often can make them kind of fizzle out when they're only partway through their combo. We're going to be bringing out Brave the Elements because it actually just doesn't do anything in the matchup. And we're going to be bringing out a Brutal Cathar because, frankly, the best thing it can hit is like a Vizier or an Arboreal Grazer, and that's not good. Like, if I had 3 more cards to bring in, I would replace the Brutal Cathars, to be totally real. And the 10th and final deck that we're going to talk about how to sideboard against is Bant Spirits. So we're going to bring in our portable holes, obviously, and we're going to be bringing in our Radines. We're bringing Radine for a collected company, and also it's like a fine blocker in the air. Like, I'm really excited about like being able to actually have combat with them in the air rather than combat on their terms. And if they don't cast collected company against us, we're the better aggressive deck. That being said, our normal culprits for things that we like to take out, I'm not interested in taking out because the board can absolutely get gummed up. It's really important we apply a ton of pressure and always be able to attack because combat is on our opponent's turns in the Bant Spirits matchup. Because they're flying, so they can attack when they want to, and we can't block except with the sideboarded Radine, and they can choose to block us if they want to. So that's a really scary thing, so it's really important we're able to like mess up combat or be able to push through a ton of damage so they have to hold things back to block. And so I actually like Brave the Elements in this matchup, and it's a creature matchup with very little removal, so I really like Brutal Cathar. That being said, we're bringing in Skyclave Apparition, so we have that even more additional removal, especially for things like Spell Queller, if they keep it in, or their lords. Now, while I bring in Redeem to slow down Collected Company, it does that extra thing, again, of being able to block in the air. Thalia slows down Collected Company very slightly, but that's really all it slows down in the matchup. And it doesn't contribute to being able to attack through their many 3 toughness spirits. And it can attack through their 3 toughness spirits unless helped by something else. So I'm not interested in playing Thalia. And they actually have nothing for Hopeful Initiate to hit. So while having bigger toughness can make combat a little bit better, I would rather be able to kill their spirits because their spirits are a little more valuable than my 1-drops. And very often when Hopeful Initiate initially attacks, they just bounce off of each other. I can't use the ability. I would rather play a 2-1 for 1. And this is how I sideboard against Bant Spirits. So there you have it, your sideboard guide for mono white humans. If you like this video, please be sure to like and subscribe. Let me know what you thought down in the comments. You can check out my social medias. Links are above me and in the description. I'd really appreciate it. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.